let's take a look at making a sprite sheet generator for particles and 3D models. All right, so we're going to make a sprite sheet generator tool, just like you see here. And in this case, I'm using a particle as an example, but you can easily put in a 3D model and have it play an animation, and then you can capture all of that. So with something like that, you would get something like a Dead Souls, I believe is the name of the game, that did something like that, where they used a 3D model for the animations. But the explosion that you're seeing here is generated from a particle, and all the frames were captured from it. And right now it's just, if I just move this over, it's just looping through, playing one frame at a time. Once it exceeds the amount of frames there are, it resets back to 0, waits 2 seconds, and then we get the restart, just so we can get we can clearly see where it's restarting. But like I said, you can use this for 3D models as well if you wanted to. This is just an idea that you could do if maybe you didn't want to use particles at all. This is a way that you can kind of make that pixel art look from your particles. All right, so what we're going to do, I'm going to come over here to the generator, go into 3D. This is just a sub viewport that our script is going to be on. It's going to have a tool button. We have a camera 3D, so it can be displayed here, so we can see what's going on in the viewport. The viewport itself has a transparent background turned on, and I'm using 16 by 16 pixels for this. Now, in your case, you might want something different, right? You might want 32 by 32, 64 by 64, maybe even 8 by 8, you know? And then I just have what would be the equivalent here, basically just the particles in here. I could just pull this out, and it'll be fine, but I just grabbed this. It was pre-made by somebody else. That's why it's already in here with a note scene, and it's got its world and all that. I have it set to one shot, so I only capture the actual explosion and not this constant repeating. And basically when I'm ready to capture, I'm going to be setting this to emitting, and there's our explosion. Right, if I come over here, I'm going to turn one shot off for this. If I come over to the sub viewport, we can see in here, this is where it's being captured. By default, it's 512 by 512, but here's 16 by 16. Again, we could do like 8 by 8 if we want to get like really small onto it, or 32 by 32. We get slightly less pixely, but of course we still pixel. So really, it's completely up to you and what it is you want to go with. Let's go with 8 by 8 this time. What you saw in the beginning there was 16 by 16, but I'm going to go with 8 by 8 because why not? Let's change it up a bit. So I'm going to set that back to one shot. And now for the actual script. This is going to be a tool script. And we're going to have a few exports here, the rows that we want to use, the columns that we want for our sprite sheet, the output path that you want it to be at, your animation option here. So if you have a 3D model that you want to play the animation of, you can type in the name of the animation you want to capture there. I'm exporting a node path for the GPU particles 3D. And with that, I can just go into the viewport here, and I can just hit assign and capture it. All right, then we can do our export tool button, generate sprite sheet. That's our little button right here in the inspector, and that needs a callable. So directly under it, we have var gen, doesn't matter what you name it. It's a callable type, and I'm just putting the name of the function here, generate sprite sheet. All right, now at this point, you may have to save, close, and reopen the scene for things to take effect. Just how it is. And we have generate sprite sheet, but before that, I want to come down here, and we're going to be using this helper function here. Prepare target for capture. So we're going to say var anim is an animation player. We're going to get node or null. We're going to get the animation player, And if you want, you can put another node path up there. If you want to assign that to the animation player that way, that's fine too. So we'll say if anim. So if we have an animation player, we're going to play the animation that we typed in here in the inspector. And same thing with particles. Right, so we're going to say var particles, GPU particles 3D, get node or null. We're going to get the path that we passed in. And if we do have particles, then we're going to set emitting to true. And we're going to wait for the rendering server to draw the first frame. Right, so let's get to the actual generate sprite sheet part. The actual generate sprite sheet function. And we start out with creating a variable for text. This is a viewport texture. We're going to grab the current texture of the viewport itself. Right, the actual output here. Same thing that we see inside the inspector. Next, we do a null check to make sure that we even have it. And if we don't, we print out an error. We push an error. But if we don't have anything there and it's empty, then we probably have some kind of issue going on. I don't know how we would end up getting there, but just in case, it's better to put something in there. Next up, we have a few variables. First image, which is of course going to be an image. Going to be get image from the text. So it pulls the first frame as an image. So we can read the dimensions and format and all that, and we get the width, the height, and the image format for our sheet. Next, we actually have the sheet variable here, and we're going to create an empty transparent image to start us off. This creates a blank spreadsheet image size to fit all of our frames. So we have width times our columns, we have our height times our rows, no bitmaps, and we keep the same format that we initially got right up here. All right, then we can move on down to total frames, which of course is just rows times columns. So in my case, if we have 38 and 10, we have 380 for my total amount of frames. Of course, indexed 0. Prepare for target capture. There's the function that we already went over. And then we enter into our for loop here. And inside of this for loop, we're going to wait until Godot finishes drawing the next frame so that we can actually capture the right thing. Otherwise, we might end up with a bunch of images or a sprite sheet that's completely blank because we're going too fast, or we might end up with, if you have maybe a 3D model in there, you might have a bunch of, all your images might be the exact same image. All right, so next we can go ahead and create an img variable, an image. That'll be getTexture.getImage. So grab the newly rendered frame out of the viewport for us. We can then get the row index and the column index for the sprite sheet. So I divided by columns and I % columns, or I modulo, I mod. And that takes us to line 38 here, where we do sheet.blitrect, and we pass in some arguments to it. What this is going to do is it's going to copy the captured frame into the correct spot inside of our sprite sheet. Source rect. Source rect. So we have our image. Source rect is the entire frame of that image, and then this is our location that we're placing it at. Right, so where we're putting it on our spreadsheet. Then we simply just save that sheet out for us, and we print out to us to let us know that we actually saved that generation for us to take a look at. So now when I hit this button, Remember, the particles should start playing. We're going to see it up here. Now, I've already gone through this, so I know that this has 38 rows and 10 columns in order to play out this entire animation. Yours could be completely different, of course, and it probably will be. So let's hit generate sprite sheet. Here we go. Save. Now, I didn't update, I'm not telling the editor to update, so I'm just going to tab out, tab back in. That'll force that to update. If we look at the sprite sheet, we can see there they all are in that long list. If I go over here to my test, I can come in, okay, quick load, pull in the sprite sheet PNG, and I've got it set to match the rows and columns, so 10 horizontal frames, 38 vertical. I'm starting on frame 0, and of course you saw the script earlier where it's just playing through all of the frames for the animation. So if we run it, there we go. You can see that's 8 by 8, and if we don't like that, right, we can always come back in, like, you know what, maybe we don't like that, maybe we want 32 by 32. Generate, let that go. All right, done. Come back over here, play this scene, and we see, oh, it's still like that. Tab out and back in just to get the update. Great. Take a look. There we go. Now we got a higher resolution. So that's all you have to do. And with that button, again, you could pass in a 3D model if you wanted to, and just have the animation player play whatever animation that you want, capture it here, and then you have your 3D model in the form of a sprite sheet. So if you're good at 3D, not necessarily 2D, there's a way you can create your own 2D art.